when I talk about narratives, we have lots of narratives around decisions as well. We want to believe that there is a right decision and a wrong decision. And what I would suggest is that a decision can be right for us at one point in our life and then not serve us any longer. And so I think if we are having an expectation or a hope that we will make the right decision and it will be consistently right for us for the rest of our lives, that isn't probably going to happen.
This is By Joyan Season 2. I'm your host, Joyan Chan, and every Wednesday we bring you inspiring stories, powerful message, and fun conversations with me and my special guests and friends, and it's my personal mission to empower you to live and lead a life with joy. This podcast is for you if you're looking for more joy, courage, passion, and purpose in your life. Now let's dive into today's episode and get ready to laugh, learn, and live your life to the fullest. Joining us today is the author of The Saint and the Drunk, a guide to making the big decisions in your life. She's an executive coach and consultant with a podcast of her own called The Bad Boss Brief and a Substack, Fierce Grace. Her writing and storytelling have appeared on The Moth, NPR, and The Guardian. So ladies and gentlemen, help me in welcoming Stephanie Peirolo.
Thank you very much for having me. I'm glad to be here.
Right, so let's start with your book. So your book is called The Saint and the Drunk. So what inspired the title and what do the saint and the drunk symbolize within all of us?
So the saint is Saint Ignatius of Loyola, who lived in the 1500s. He was a mercenary. He got injured and he had to make a decision about whether he wanted to go back to fighting wars for a living or if he wanted to become a priest. And he was laid up in his family's castle in Spain, and he had a lot of time on his hands. So he developed a way of making a decision, this particular decision, that later came to be known as discernment. And it was a whole process for making a big decision in your life that is very Catholic, very based in the Bible and prayer. And it's something that I did when I was in my 30s that completely changed how I made decisions. And so people that I knew, friends at work, or later when I became an executive coach, clients would ask me, how do you make these big decisions in your life, which you seem to make with relative ease? And I wanted to explain the process to them, but it was so Catholic that it didn't seem appropriate for a work setting. And then I realized that the frame that I needed was another spiritual person, Bill Wilson, who was the co-founder of Alcoholics Anonymous. So anyone that knows what a 12-step program is, Bill Wilson wrote the 12 steps. And he had started Alcoholics Anonymous as an explicitly Christian group. And some of the early recovering alcoholics came to the early AA members and said, hey, so we would prefer not to die drunk, but we don't believe in God, or we believe in a different understanding of the divine. And so the early AAs decided, you know what? Pick your own notion of whatever works for you. We're going to call it a higher power. Instead of using typical religious language, it could be the field outside. It could be nature. We don't care. It's none of our business. You figure out what works for you. And I realized in that framework, I had the kind of expansive lens that I needed. So I started using that in an abbreviated form with some of my clients and some of my friends. And I found that certain things kept coming up. And so the original idea was from the saint through the lens of the drunk. And then as I worked with this material more and more, I realized, like, you know what, in order for this to be a real workbook, which was what my hope was, I needed to take some of the understanding that I had gathered in just my life and combine it with some of the things that had come up. So for example, the middle section of the book is all about key narratives that can interfere in our ability to make a decision. So it's not about the spiritual practice. It's not about, any of the tools. It's about, you know what? Every time I talk to a woman about making a big decision in her life, issues come up around family and children and your responsibility to elderly parents. And, often when I'm talking to men, ideas come up about, well, am I allowed to quit? Can I leave? Do I have to be a lawyer when I went to law school and passed the bar? And so I captured some of those to give people a starting off point to better understand some of the things that impede our ability to make decisions. So that's the saint and the drunk.
Well, I love that. So you mentioned the middle section. There are key narratives of why people are afraid to make a decision, especially when it comes to like a major life decision. So my based on my own experiences, actually I'm at a crossroad, which is why I'm so excited to talk to you, because I need to make a decision right now, and I don't know how, like, where do I even start, what if. So I think for me, and I believe many people are also struggling with, what if I made the wrong decision, right? And so is there really such thing as a wrong decision, and how can we overcome that fear and make a decision with greater confidence?
So there's a couple of really great points in there. And I do want to start out with the idea of, like, what if we make the wrong decision? So, when I talk about narratives, we have lots of narratives around decisions as well, right? We want to believe that there is a right decision and a wrong decision.
Yeah.
And what I would suggest is that a decision can be right for us at one point in our life and then not serve us any longer. And so I think if we are having an expectation or a hope that we will make the right decision and it will be consistently right for us for the rest of our lives, that isn't probably going to happen, right? I mean, if you think about people who get married,
Yeah.
most of them have been intentional about making that decision. They've been careful. They've thought about it. They might have consulted with their elders or, spiritual leaders, and they make the decision and it is right for them at a point in time. And then later, it is not right. And if, to use this imaginary example, if, a couple made that decision and one of them developed a significant addiction and the other person was not able to continue to be married to them, it didn't mean it was a bad decision. It meant that their spouse had a problem with addiction and they had to make some choices around that. So I would invite people to really maybe even start with looking at, what stories am I telling myself about decisions? Do I believe that this is something cast in stone and I could never do something else? Right? Like, because I think and then, do we have a problem with being a perfectionist? Do we feel like we're allowed to make mistakes? Do we have examples in our family of people making mistakes and being okay with it? So I think even just to think about what is our framework about decisions can be useful. And one of the kind of key points that I make is that we have a cultural framework about making decisions that is based in rational thought. You make a pros and cons list. You talk to experts. It's all rational. It's all intellectual. And for many people, that can be useful. And I'm not in any way saying that we shouldn't use our minds. But most of us stop at the chin. We never think about our body, our spirit, our heart, what our dreams are, what we're longing for. We just stay neck up.
Yeah.
And so I think the idea of looking at, is a decision a success or right for you if it truly aligns with your intentions and desires? If it makes you feel like you're on the path to doing what you were called to do in the world, is that more important than whether or not it checks the right intellectual list? And so I think getting curious about, what are your expectations about a decision could be a good place to start. Is that helpful?
Yeah, of course. I didn't know you are sharing so that it helps me, but yeah, it does. I'm sure many people who are listening as well. So okay, so you talk about building an internal compass, right?
Right.
That rather than like depending so much on our mind to make the right decisions, and also like trusting ourselves rather than looking outside of ourselves, for answers.
So, what does a healthy internal compass look like, and how can we start developing one?
A healthy internal compass looks like think about looking at an actual compass, or for those of you that don't use compasses, putting in a direction on a map, and your smartphone gives you a path. It might give you a couple alternate paths. You have a confidence in the accuracy of the information that you are receiving. And I think having an internal compass means you have the confidence of the accuracy of the information you are receiving. I am drawn towards this. I am repelled by this. And you may see two different paths, right? So it might not be as simple, but it's the idea of an internal compass. I think also has a mature understanding of the decision making process, which is so I think I have an internal compass that's good. I mean, fortunately, because I wrote a book about it, but because I have been doing this discernment practice for 30 years. And so what I recognize is that I have a realistic understanding of what a decision is. It's not going to be quick. It's going to take me a while. I might need to clear off distractions. Am I making a decision when I'm very angry? Or I'm feeling a lot of grief? Am I coming from a place of fear? I may recognize that there are certain narratives that are very troublesome for me. I have a fear of financial insecurity. If I'm making a decision about money, I know that for myself. And as a mature discerner, I will call my Aunt Tanya, who is my trusted elder, and say, hey, here's what I'm thinking, because she's good with money. And so I think a mature compass is a realistic understanding of how I make decisions and what ways I can support myself. Because I think, and this is kind of ironic given that I wrote a book about this, is that the decision making process is different for each person.
Okay.
There are similar characteristics, there are exercises, there are things that you can think about. But like I have a number of different tools in my book, and my expectation is that one will work, the other three will be useless for you.
So yeah, let's talk about the process. Since you have the decision making process, I love processes. Like when I'm lost or confused, I just need the step by step. Like what do I do now, and what do I do next? So although yes, you said it's different for everyone, but what is the general process? What does it look like?
So the general process is the first thing is to understand what is the question you are trying to discern. And for some people, this is difficult because a lot of decisions will be intersecting. And so, what I generally do is I say to people, tell me a sentence that starts with I want. What do you want? And what's funny is the first time I did this, I did a retreat for the book launch. I did a retreat and I had, I don't know, probably 40 or 50, mostly women in a room.
Wow.
And and they were ages like 20 something to 80 something. And I said, just what do you want?
Mm,
And there was this kind of energy in the room like, wait, what do you mean? I don't get to just say what I want. And I'm like, no, no, you do. And so the idea is the question that you are discerning, you should have some yearning around it, right? Even if you don't know why, you want something,
yeah.
right? Whatever that may be. So that's the place that you start. Then one of the things that I added is when I have read guides or processes similar to this, especially early in my career, I was a single mom with two little kids with not a lot of money working three jobs. So when I would read guides to making career decisions that talked about, put it out in the universe, manifest, follow your dreams, it didn't resonate with me. And so what I have is you need to look realistically at your responsibilities, right? And that might be you might have elderly parents that you need to care for, which means you probably can't move to another country to go to graduate school right now. So figure out how you can do what you need to do, right? You may have health issues which are going to limit some of the choices that you make. This is the reality in which we live, and we need to honor that. So there is a practical component to this. Then, as I mentioned, the idea of kind of going through the narratives. I also invite people, if they are, especially if they're making a decision about a career, to look at clues in their life, right? So my daughter is a registered nurse. And when she was in elementary school, she wanted the anatomy book Grey's Anatomy, not the TV show. She wanted the book. And she was like in second or third grade. And I got her the book. So when she decided many years later that she wanted to be a nurse, I was not surprised, right? Often when we go back and we look at our childhood, what fascinated us? What did we love? Right? That can give us guidance. So there's a certain amount of detective work that you can do. And then there's four different kind of main tools that you can use when you are actually you've done all the prep work. Now you're deciding, right? So do you want me to just quickly go through those
Sure,
tools?
if you
Okay.
can. Yeah.
Okay. So the first one is the most Ignatian. This is what Saint Ignatius did when he was in his bed. He used his imagination in an embodied way. And he simply, so let's say that you are deciding, the first time I described this, it was to a friend at work, and she was trying to decide whether to keep her day job, where we
Yeah.
worked at an ad agency, or become a photographer and leave her day job. And I said, I want you to get in a comfortable position in a meditative stance, and I want you to deeply imagine what it is like for you to go to work at your day job, like, and use your body. Like, what do you smell when you walk into the office? What's your first cup of coffee taste like? Who do you greet? And as you deeply imagine this, figure out whether or not you like it, and then take a break and then do the exact same thing, imagining deeply in your body that you are going to your work at your photography studio. And that's what Ignatius did. He imagined being a mercenary, and he felt this kind of like uptick in energy, and then he felt kind of eh. He imagined being a priest, and he felt good, and he just kept feeling good. And so the idea is that to try your imagination. So that's one, right?
Yeah.
For some people, that may not resonate. The next one is the genius of the body, which is, what does your body have to say about this? And so for some of us, I mean, we use language about our body, the genius of the body, all the time. I had cold feet. I had butterflies in my stomach.
Yeah.
I had a heartbreak or heartache, right? So we know in our language that our body is the seat of information. The idea is to tune into it. And I want to say, for some people, this is very hard, right? People who have maybe had some kind of trauma, someone who has suffered a sexual assault, maybe has chronic pain. So if this one doesn't resonate with you, that's okay. You can use one of the other three. But the idea is, for people who can, what's your body telling you, right? And if you think about it, and again, to use the idea of kind of love and relationships, most of us at a certain age have met someone to whom we are instantly drawn.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't necessarily make sense, right? Someone you just feel relaxed with, or you just find them so attractive. That is the genius of the body. It's not an intellectual thing, right? And so the idea of like, what comes up for you? And, for me, I enjoy swimming. And so a lot of times I will get into the pool, and then as I'm swimming, some emotion will arise, right? It might be a sense of sadness, it might be frustration. There's all sorts of things, right? And so the idea is, take a walk, do some kind of movement, and just see what arises for you. Because for some people, this can be a really, really rich channel, right? And for other people, not doesn't work for them, right? And then the third one is the idea of using attraction and aversion. And this is being drawn to something or repelled by it. And it can happen in your intellect, your imagination, or actually in your body. And we talk a lot in our culture about attraction. I wanted to do this. I loved this. I've always wanted to live here. We don't really honor aversion, the feeling of like, oh my God, I hate that.
Yeah.
I could never work in an office all day sitting at a desk. Ugh. We don't really honor that, but they are equally valid. And so tuning in again, thinking of your awareness as it grows as kind of a radio station, right? Or something you're trying to tune into. And I often say if I am coaching someone, a woman who's in her late 40s, and she tells me the last three movies and books that she consumed were about a woman moving to Tuscany and buying a house,
Yeah.
I would say that's an attraction response. Can you afford to go to Italy on your vacation? Right? The same thing can happen with aversion. And so it's just, like when you're going through a breakup and every song, every movie seems to be about breaking up, that's the kind of thing that I'm talking about. Like I think most of us know it, we just haven't named it. And then the last one is kind of the hardest to find, but it does happen, and so I want to name it, and I call it the intuitive thought. Right? So this often happens to people who have some kind of a spiritual practice, right? Maybe they have a meditation practice, maybe they do yoga or tai chi, but they are tuned into, or maybe they just, they have a religion that they are actively involved in. Whatever it is, for some people, they have access to a knowing that just arises. And so this is almost kind of can be the shortcut. So if someone comes to me and says, I was ready to do this discernment process and have it take 3 months and I had all the things. And then, you know what? I just woke up one day and I had this deep, deep sense of knowing. I was walking in the woods and I just knew what I wanted. And if this person has, a meditation practice and walking in the woods is a particularly like kind of connected space for them, I'd be like, trust that. Right? Doesn't happen as often, but it is any one of those, one or more of those four usually resonate with someone. And the idea is there's your toolbox, pick one or two, play with them, and then see what happens.
I mean, thanks for sharing. I would love to dive deeper into number three, attraction and aversion.
Okay.
When you say aversion, do you mean like resistance? And how do we use resistance? How can resistance actually become a valuable guide rather than just like an obstacle?
Right. So let me start, if I could, with the resistance piece, because one of the things that I talk about in using these tools is that they might not be easy to use. And one of the things that I talk about is resistance. And I have a whole chapter in the book called Honoring Resistance. And you said it, resistance is a valuable tool. But what I mean by resistance is you buy my book, you really think it's important, and it sits on the shelf for 6 months. We are told often that no pain, no gain, you need to push through. And a lot of people have expressed this to me. Friends have said, oh my God, my book has been sitting, your book has been sitting on the shelf for 3 months. I feel so bad. And I'm like, you need to honor that resistance. Your resistance to picking up that book may signal that you are not ready to receive this information. It may be procrastination. You need to learn the difference, right? But I think reframing the orientation, so we honor resistance. We assume that if we are resisting something, we should get curious about it because it's probably valid, rather than castigating ourselves for, being lazy or not following through. So that's one thing. But what I want to say with aversion, so here's the example that I use, which again, sometimes makes people uncomfortable. But the clearest example is a woman who is trying to decide whether or not to have a baby. Her partner really wants to have a baby and she's not sure. And she goes to visit her sister who has just had her second child. An attraction response would be something we're familiar with. She walks into her sister's apartment, she holds the baby smells like babies do, and she thinks a lot of positive things. She has an attraction to holding the baby, blah, blah, blah. We know that story, right?
Yeah.
What we often don't talk about is a woman who walks in, picks up the baby, and has a strong physical sense of aversion. Like, oh my God, this baby smells like poop. This whole house smells like poop. My sister had a C-section. Seeing her in pain makes my stomach hurt. I'm going to help her and I'm going to, do the dishes. But the entire time I am helping my sister, I am overwhelmed with a feeling of aversion, right? People talk about getting an ick. This is like an ick on steroids. This is, oh my God. And that woman with the aversion response might leave her sisters, go home, put on her running shoes and run for 5 miles with a sense of relief, that is an aversion response which she should listen to. And what happens, and I've done this in a retreat setting, I have had women argue with me about my completely hypothetical example and say, well, she just hasn't met the right man yet.
Yeah.
Because there's so much cultural pressure
Yeah.
on women to have children. And for a woman to say, you know what, I am going to own that at this moment in my life, the last thing I want to do is have a child. And I am going to make that decision based on honoring this very clear, very strong reaction. And the reason that I bring up aversion is I think I have talked to many people, and I've had this experience myself, where I feel that sense of aversion and I talk myself out of it. People will be disappointed in me. I should do this. I should do that. So does that make it clearer?
Yes, definitely a lot clearer. So what if in my body, right? Listening to our body, yeah, the wisdom of our body. Like, what if, like, going through all these, exercises, I know what I want. I know this is something that, oh my god, I just can't imagine myself doing it. Right? I hate this, whatever that is. But
Right.
again, you talk about we have to sometimes be rational and I mean be realistic, right? Maybe we have elderly parents that we need to take care of, or we have like kids and things like that, a responsibility. So what do we do then when we are, in our minds, like, yeah, that's the right thing to do. That's what I need to do, right? It's my responsibility. But in my body, it's telling me that's not, you don't like this. Like you can't, it's not what you should be doing. So what should we do then?
Right. I think that what we should do is plan. So too often we can be in that decision and be like, this is what I want, but it's not practical. So I'm going to ignore the fact that I want it. And what I'm suggesting is own that you want it. Own that, right? Honor it. Put like you want this thing. Now figure out a plan that works. So I'll use an example from my life, right?
Sure.
So I have been a writer since I could hold a pencil, and I really wanted to get a book published. And like many authors, I did not have success. I self-published a novel, kept trying to get a book published. I knew what I wanted to do. I knew what my calling was in the world, but I couldn't go get a graduate degree in my master's in fine art because I had, these kids. I didn't want to write short stories. I wanted to write novels. And it's hard to sell novels. But I never pretended that I didn't want to be a writer. So I started a Substack like 3 years ago. And then I started a podcast. And then I got this idea for this book and I wrote it, and it couldn't get an agent. Sent it out to a publisher in London who, out of the blue, was like, yeah, we like it. We want to publish your book. I published my first book through a publisher when I was 62 years old.
Wow.
So that I didn't ever let go of that dream, right? And not even the dream, the desire. I kept writing. And throughout that time, I had to go back and navigate, what does success look like? Can I be a writer if I don't publish? Yes, I can. I can write for the people that follow me on Substack. That is who I'm writing for, right? And so the idea is I never stopped pretending that I was who I was and I wanted what I wanted. But I also recognized that I had children to raise. And I think the other thing that goes with this is often we forget, particularly I did when I was younger, that we have seasons in our life.
Yeah.
Right? I am in a season in my life where my daughter is grown. She has children of her own. I have a more flexible work schedule so that I have the time and the energy to do some of these things. And so the notion that if I can't do something now in this season, for whatever reason, there will most likely be a season in which I will be able to do that. So if I am assuming that I will have an opportunity to do this in 3 years or 5 years, what do I do now? Right? What do I do now? So I just kept writing. I wrote multiple books, all of which sit on my hard drive, because I thought I'll just keep practicing writing, right? I'll just keep doing it. And my guess is that for people who know what they want,
Yeah.
as I'm saying this, there's probably some plan, right? There's probably there's something I can do now that would help me do the thing that I know I want to do, 3 years down the road.
That's beautiful. I mean, thanks for sharing. That's a great example, right? We just have to sometimes postpone our dreams and desires, right? Doesn't mean we have to give out completely. It's just that maybe not now, but soon.
And there are other rewards too. Like I talk about this as an intentional decision making process because it has an intentional framework. Like I was a single parent of two little kids, and I made a decision to prioritize their well being, right? School and bracelets and school fees and all of that, right?
Yeah,
I have a great relationship with my daughter. And I feel like maybe part of the reason I have a great relationship with my daughter is that I really prioritized her well-being. And maybe I would have had a great relationship if I had chased job to job and whatever. But the idea of like, if I am really doing what I believe to be right, then it's going to probably turn out okay. Right. So if you're making a decision to care for your elderly parents or, take care of a kid with special needs for the period of time until they can be more independent, it's probably going to work out well for you in terms of your relationships and just your own sense of well-being.
right. Okay. So, as someone who coaches executives, you teach them negotiation, public speaking, decision making. You have seen people transform not just personally but also professionally. So, to summarize everything that we talk about, what inner shift do you believe has the biggest impact on how someone shows up as a leader?
I think that there's two things. I think it's self-knowledge and the ability to regulate yourself. Right? So a lot of people don't know they don't really know their weak spots, especially like I deal with a lot of CEOs. A lot of them don't have someone who will tell them the hard truths. Like the most successful CEOs that I have worked with have a spouse, right? Regardless of gender, they have a spouse who tells them the truth. They have a spouse who says, yeah, no, you can't say that. That is a bad decision. You were a jerk and need to go back and apologize to that person. And they are the most successful because they have a built in mechanism, and they don't have to be married. It could be close friends, right? They know themselves, and they have a person or people who are their peers who hold them accountable.
Mm,
Right. So that's the first thing. And then the second thing is an ability to regulate yourself. So many people don't understand the notion of regulation. They get, like they get activated. They feel like a sudden rush of anger because something small happened. And they don't have the self awareness or the ability to regulate themselves to be like, you know what? Like, I'll give you an example. I faced a tremendous amount of sexual harassment when I was coming up, right? I mean, I had men lay hands on me. I was fired from jobs. Like it was horrible. And so if I'm in a professional situation and a man cuts me off or cuts off another woman in the room or says something that's sexist, I am very activated. I can feel it in my body.
yeah.
And I know that this happened and I know how to regulate myself.
Okay.
And I will take a breath. I will take a pause. If need be, I can go to the ladies' room for a minute so that I can regulate myself so that I can respond appropriately. And it can happen really quickly, but I find that the most successful leaders have those two things. And then the extra sort of added bonus is being able to be influenced by other people. So being influenced means if somebody comes to me and they're the receptionist and I'm the CEO and they have a great idea, I will implement their idea.
Okay.
Right? It's just being able to listen to people even if they're saying something that challenges you. Right? So, I have a lot of clients who I will, they'll ask me for my opinion and I will tell them the opinion and it will challenge them, and I watch how they absorb that, right? And so those are I mean, there's obviously a lot, but those are the kind of three that came to my mind.
And I believe it works for not just, it works for everyone, whether you're a CEO, right? It works when
Right.
you're a mom, right? You get triggered, activated all the time by your kids, or, like even me,
Right.
That is a key. Yeah. Stephanie, thank you so much for your time. Before we end, is there anything else that you really want to talk about? Perhaps I didn't ask you, didn't let you.
I mean, I think that what I would invite people to understand is that you already know how to do this.
Mm,
You just got disconnected from that inner knowing because of your family, because of your culture, because of experiences. So you already know this. I'm not teaching you how to do anything new. I'm reconnecting you with an innate ability that you already have.
right. Yeah. Now tell my people where they can connect with you. If they want to work with you, do you only coach? I know you work with a lot of women, right? So who else do you work with? And if they want to get a
I, I do coach men. I have wonderful men clients. They've taught me a lot. And I have, but I also offer individual coaching. So I offer executive coaching for people in a corporate setting or in an individual setting. My website is speirolo.com. Presumably you'll have a link to it in the show notes because it's a challenging name to spell.
yeah,
You can find out about where you can read my work and also about the services I offer and the classes and various things. And you can just get in touch. I always like to hear the experience of people who are interacting with my content and what you're finding as you go along.
beautiful. Thank you so much. I must say this conversation really helped me a lot. And I will let you know if I manage to make the decision in my life and that I will be proud of. And thank you so much again for sharing so generously with me and my listener today. And guys, I hope this conversation also has helped you today and it has given you a fresh perspective on how to make a decision in your life, right? I'll put all her links in the show note below, so make sure you visit the show note, connect with her, thank her for coming to our show today, and grab a copy of her book. Again, thanks for listening, and wish you all a joyful and amazing day ahead.
Thank you again for tuning into Find Joy Joanne podcast. If you enjoyed today's episode, take a screenshot and share it on your IG story and tag Find Joy Joanne _podcast so I know you are listening. And leave us a positive review on Apple Podcasts if you haven't already done so. And remember to hit the subscribe button whether you are listening on Spotify, iTunes, Amazon Music, or any of your other favorite platforms. If you love what we are doing and want to become one of our sponsors, you can send me a DM to connect. And thanks for being here. I will see you soon in the next episode.